What if the secret to living past 100 isn't some grueling gym routine?
Or a totally miserable restrictive diet.
Right. What if it's just finding the happiness of always being busy? Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're uncovering the secrets of the world's longest living people, drawing directly from the book Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life by Héctor García and Francesc Miralles.
It's an incredible piece of research.
It really is. And, just to respect your time as a listener, we are skipping the whole backstory of how the book was written.
Yeah, we're jumping straight into the actionable data, the stuff that can actually change how you live.
Exactly. So to really understand this, I want you to mentally transport yourself to a lush, mountainous, rural village in Okinawa, Japan.
The air is clear, the community is incredibly tight-knit.
And the concept of retirement doesn't even exist. Okay, let's unpack this, because what the authors found in these rural areas completely upends how most of us think about aging.
It truly does. I mean, we are heading straight to the environment that boasts the highest life expectancy in the entire world.
Right.
The physical landscape is beautiful, sure, but the true secret to their longevity isn't just, the fresh air or the ocean breeze. It's deeply rooted in a philosophical and practical concept called Ikigai.
Yeah, let's break down that word. It comes from the Japanese iki, which means life.
And gai, which means to be worthwhile.
Basically, it's your reason for being. It's often described as the center of a Venn diagram, where four specific elements intersect.
Right. So it's what you love,
What you're good at,
what the world needs.
and what you can be paid for. When you find the center of those four things, you've found your Ikigai. It's that core motivation that literally gets you out of bed in the morning.
And having that motivation completely alters how a society structures its lifespan.
How so?
Well, in the West, we have this deeply ingrained goal of retirement. The standard narrative is that you work hard, often doing something you tolerate rather than love.
Right, just counting down the days.
Exactly, so that one day you can stop working entirely and just relax. But there's actually no word in the Japanese language that means retire in that traditional Western sense of leaving the workforce for good.
They just don't have it.
No, they simply keep doing what they find meaningful for as long as their health allows.
It makes you realize how fragile the Western model of solo retirement really is. We treat stopping work as the ultimate prize, but an entire culture over in Okinawa doesn't even have the vocabulary for it.
They view constant, meaningful contribution as the prize itself. What's fascinating here is the connection to the ancient Roman concept of mens sana in corpore sano, a sound mind and a sound body.
Oh, yeah?
The research shows that maintaining a youthful, active mind through a profound sense of purpose actually drives a biological resistance to aging.
Because your body knows it still has a job to do.
Precisely. When you have a reason to get up, you naturally cultivate healthier habits. Your mind stays engaged, which directly slows down cellular aging. It's a biological feedback loop powered by purpose. If the mind believes there's work to be done, the body attempts to maintain the machinery required to do it.
So, for you listening right now, take a second and think about it. What is the thing that would get you out of bed tomorrow morning if a paycheck wasn't on the line?
That's the thread you want to pull on.
Definitely. But Ikigai isn't just an individual pursuit happening in a vacuum, right? It thrives in a very specific type of environment.
It does. The authors looked at the 5 blue zones around the world. These are regions where people live significantly longer than the global average.
We're talking about Sardinia in Italy, Loma Linda in California, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, Ikaria in Greece, and of course, Okinawa, Japan.
Yes, and within Okinawa, the authors zeroed in on a specific rural town called Ogimi. It has a population of about 3,000 and is widely known as the Village of Longevity.
And when you look closely at Ogimi, you see that their Ikigai is deeply intertwined with their social structure. It relies on a concept called the moai.
The moai is such a fascinating social safety net.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's an informal group of people with common interests who look out for one another. It's the ultimate expression of community over isolation.
They pool their funds, they play games together, they share advice.
And they provide a rock-solid emotional and financial support system for every single member of the group.
Which raises an important question. Why do these tight-knit communities form in these specific regions?
Right. What's the common denominator?
If you look at the geographic data of the blue zones, 3 of the 5 are actually islands. Geographic isolation and resource scarcity historically force these communities to rely heavily on one another.
Just to survive meager harvests or hard times.
Exactly. That historic reliance built the moai system. And ironically, that very scarcity created a culture of extreme support, which drastically lowers chronic stress and boosts life expectancy.
Because when you know your neighbors will catch you if you fall, your nervous system can finally relax.
Completely.
That deep sense of connection is totally woven into the local Okinawan spirit. They have a guiding principle called Ichiriba Chode, which translates to treat everyone like a brother, even if you've never met them before.
I love that.
And they also actively practice yumaru, which means teamwork. That could mean pitching in to harvest crops or even physically helping to build a house for a neighbor. You are never truly alone in Ogimi.
Which is a stark contrast to the isolation many older adults face in modern Western societies. In Ogimi, serving the community often becomes a core part of an individual's Ikigai.
And that feeling of belonging directly impacts their biology.
Yes. Studies have shown that strong social ties reduce inflammatory disorders and cardiovascular diseases, which are incredibly common in populations that experience high rates of loneliness.
So we've seen how community feeds the soul, but how are they literally feeding their bodies? Because you can't talk about biological longevity without talking about what's actually on the plate. Here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just what they eat, it's how they approach the act of eating itself. There's an ancient 12th century Buddhist concept that the Okinawans still repeat before or after meals, harahachibu.
It translates to fill your belly to 80%.
Right. They intentionally stop eating when they feel they're about 80% full.
The biological mechanics behind harahachibu are incredibly sound. By avoiding overeating, they prevent their bodies from being worn down by long, exhausting digestive processes.
Because digesting food takes a massive amount of energy.
It does, and it creates metabolic byproducts. Overeating keeps the body in a constant state of digestion, which accelerates cellular oxidation.
Which is basically like biological resting.
That's a great way to put it. Think of oxidation like biological resting. The more you overtax the digestive system with excess calories, the faster your cells rust and age.
That makes perfect sense. But knowing when you're exactly 80% full is notoriously difficult, especially if you're eating something delicious.
It is. So the Okinawans use a very clever environmental design to help them accomplish this without having to rely purely on willpower.
The small plates trick.
Exactly. Instead of serving massive main courses on large dinner plates like we typically do in the West, they serve meals on 5 small plates, usually 4 tiny ones and 1 slightly larger one.
Having 5 separate plates spread out in front of you tricks your brain into thinking you're eating a massive, abundant feast.
But you actually end up eating significantly less and feeling just slightly hungry at the end of the meal. It's a psychological hack that supports their biological health.
And when we look at the dietary specifics, the numbers are pretty revealing. The average Okinawan consumes roughly 1,800 to 1,900 calories a day.
Compare that to the United States, where the average daily intake is somewhere between 2,200 and 3,300 calories.
But those 1,800 calories in Okinawa are incredibly dense with nutrients.
They essentially eat the rainbow. The research found that Okinawan centenarians regularly consume 206 different foods on a regular basis. Wow. They average 18 different foods a day. Their diet is heavily plant-based, relying on tofu, sweet potatoes, an array of vegetables, and fish about 3 times a week.
They also drink a tremendous amount of green tea and consume shikuwasa, which is this local lime-like citrus fruit that packs an unbelievable antioxidant punch.
It's really a masterclass in high-nutrient, low-calorie eating. But nutrition is only one side of the coin.
Right. The other is their psychological resilience.
Yeah.
The Okinawans are masters of entering what the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi calls the flow state.
Flow is that profound feeling of being so completely immersed in a task that you lose all sense of time.
The authors give a perfect example with Jiro from the documentary Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
He's been making sushi for over 80 years.
But he doesn't get bored because he achieves a state of flow every single time he works. It's his Ikigai. Or take Hayao Miyazaki, the legendary animator. He officially retired, and the very next day, he went right back to the studio to draw.
He couldn't stop because drawing is his flow state.
But you don't have to be a world-renowned sushi chef or an Oscar-winning animator to achieve this, right?
Not at all. That is where the sources highlight the concept of microflow. Even mundane, everyday tasks like doing the laundry, weeding the garden, or slicing vegetables for those 5 small plates can induce a flow state if you approach them with mindfulness.
So how do you actually do that?
The key to microflow is prioritizing rituals over goals. Instead of obsessing over the final outcome, like simply getting the dishes done as fast as possible so you can sit down, you focus on the rhythm of the process itself.
You feel the water, you focus on the movement.
Exactly. It turns a basic chore into an active meditation.
I think that's such a powerful shift in perspective. And speaking of the mind, the psychological approach in Japan offers another profound tool. There's a method called Morita therapy, which was developed by Shomo Morita around the same time as Viktor Frankl's logotherapy.
And for those who might not be familiar with Frankl's work, logotherapy is a psychological approach focused entirely on finding meaning or purpose in your life as the primary human drive.
But Morita therapy takes a slightly different, deeply accepting angle. Instead of trying to fight off negative emotions or anxieties, Morita therapy teaches you to welcome them.
It's deeply rooted in Zen Buddhism. Morita compared human emotions to the weather. You cannot predict the weather, and you certainly cannot control it. You can only observe it and dress accordingly.
If you feel sad or anxious, trying to force yourself to feel happy only creates more internal friction.
The book quotes the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who perfectly captured this mindset. He said, "Hello, solitude. How are you today? Come sit with me, and I will care for you."
Wait, so is that just another form of mindfulness, or is there a distinction there?
It is a specific application of mindfulness. While general mindfulness is about staying present, Morita therapy is actively removing the value judgment from your emotions.
You don't label solitude or stress as bad things to be eradicated.
Right. You simply sit with them. And that acceptance leads to a very interesting revelation about stress itself. We are often told that all stress is a killer, and that the key to a long life is zero stress.
But Dr. Howard S. Friedman conducted a landmark study over 2 decades that proves something called the stress paradox.
The stress paradox is fascinating. He found that a little bit of stress, specifically the kind that comes from facing meaningful challenges and pouring your heart into your work, actually leads to a longer life than a purely relaxed early retirement lifestyle.
It acts much like a muscle.
Exactly. If you never use a muscle, it atrophies. A little resistance keeps you sharp. The people who lived the longest in Friedman's study were the ones who were engaged, committed, and facing the friction of daily challenges.
They didn't retreat from the world to avoid stress. They engaged with the world on their own terms.
They also embrace an aesthetic and philosophical concept called wabi-sabi, which is finding beauty in the imperfect and the incomplete.
You see this in Japanese art all the time. A cracked teacup is considered beautiful precisely because it is flawed and impermanent.
Applying that to human aging is so freeing. Appreciating your own flaws naturally reduces the stress of perfectionism.
That impermanence is tied to another beautiful concept, Ichigo Ichii, which roughly translates to this moment, exists only now and won't come again.
It is a constant reminder to anchor yourself in the present. When you truly internalize that every single encounter is unique and fleeting, it naturally strips away the stress of regretting the past or dreading the future.
So, we have the community support of the Moai, the 80% diet, the flow state, and the acceptance of imperfection. But what about physical exercise?
That's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Because if you look at modern health advice, you'd think you need to be doing high-intensity interval training every day to live to 100. But let's bust that myth right now. The centenarians in Okinawa are not running marathons.
They're not deadlifting at the local gym for an hour a day.
No, their secret is constant, low-intensity movement. They simply never stop moving.
From the moment they wake up, they are active. They spend hours tending to their gardens. They walk everywhere instead of driving.
They do morning radio taiso exercises, or they practice gentle disciplines like yoga or qigong.
The morning radio taiso is such a great example of this. It's a gentle stretching and mobility routine broadcasted on the radio and television, and huge portions of the population do it together every morning.
It wakes up the body, gets the synovial fluid moving in the joints, and again, builds that sense of community because everyone is participating in the same ritual.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these Eastern movement practices like yoga, tai chi, and qigong are structurally and philosophically different from Western gym culture.
Western workouts often focus on pushing the body to its limits, breaking down muscle to build it back up.
Whereas these Eastern practices combine gentle physical exercise with an acute awareness of breath. By syncing your movement with your breathing, you bring your consciousness entirely in line with your body.
It's physical maintenance and psychological meditation happening simultaneously.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? How do we distill the wisdom of the world's longest living people into something you can carry with you?
The authors distilled their findings into a set of core principles, and what really stands out is how actionable they are.
It's about staying active and refusing to completely withdraw from your passions. It's about taking it slow, leaving urgency behind, and remembering Harahachi Baben, never filling your stomach completely.
It's also about surrounding yourself with good friends to build your own version of a moai, getting in shape for your next birthday with gentle daily movement rather than punishing workouts.
And crucially, it involves the daily practices of smiling, reconnecting with nature, giving thanks to the world around you, and living firmly in the present moment with Ichigo-ichi.
And the culmination of all those practices is following your Ikigai.
And if you don't know what your Ikigai is yet, don't panic.
Right. Your intuition and your curiosity are your best internal compasses. Pay attention to what brings you into a state of flow, what tasks make you lose track of time. It requires a patient search.
You shouldn't stress about finding it instantly. The search itself is part of the journey.
Which brings us to a really fascinating crossroads. Science is pushing our lifespans further every year, but as the Okinawans show us, a long life is only a good life if you have a reason to live it.
And before we wrap up, there's a concept from the book that genuinely shifts how you might think about the future of aging. It's the idea of aging's escape velocity.
Imagine a sign far off in the distance with a number on it that represents the age of your natural death. Every year you live, you walk one step closer to that sign.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Now imagine a rabbit holding that sign, walking away from you into the future. That rabbit speed represents our medical and technological advancements. Right now, for every year you live, the rabbit moves maybe a few months further away.
But aging's escape velocity is the hypothetical moment when science advances so fast that the rabbit is walking at a pace of 1 year per year, or even faster.
In theory, if medical technology outpaces the rate of aging, we could achieve biological immortality.
And that leaves you with this final provocative thought to mull over today. If science does hit that escape velocity, and we achieve biological immortality. Wait, let me rephrase that. If we can live forever, will you actually want to? If you haven't yet found your Ikigai, think about it. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.